Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yeiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan on a very big weekend in the outdoors here in our great state. What is it? It's the opening weekend of the firearm deer season. And this year, that opening weekend happens to fall on a Saturday. You know, people look for this, a weekend opener. Some people want to see it be a weekend opener every year. They want the legislature, the DNR, the NRC, or whoever to change the opening day of the deer season so more people can have access to this treasured activity. I have to admit I can see the benefits of that to make it as easy as possible for more people to get into the woods. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I like November 15th. And because I am blessed with a little bit of a flexible schedule, I can go out whatever day of the week. It doesn't matter. I like November 15th. I say if you are committed to the lifestyle, you will take the time off that you need to or schedule your vacation or whatever. I mean, I remember as a kid, the first thing I would do when I would get a new calendar, a paper calendar, remember those? I would get a new calendar, 2 things I would look for. What day of the week is Christmas and what day of the week is November 15th, the opening day of gun season. Because back then, there weren't the early seasons that there are now. We weren't even bow hunters. So there was no bow season opener. There was no independence hunt. There was no youth hunt. There was no early doe season. There wasn't any of that. And the first time we had a chance to hunt deer for any species or any manner was November 15th. So it was a big, big deal. These days, because we have so many different seasons, I think in some ways it tends to dilute the celebration of November 15th. Is it still a big deal? Absolutely. You know, it used to be, we talked about the Orange Army and the day you could hear sunrise in Michigan, meaning there would be so many hunters in the woods that as soon as the sun, got high enough that you could see what you were shooting at, people would start shooting. I don't know about that one. I have noticed where I hunt in the middle part of the state for the last couple of weeks now, there's been a lot of shooting going on. And you can tell if it's just, a midday 3 shots sighting in the rifle or checking the accuracy of the rifle as opposed to a 10 minutes before dark wham type shot with maybe a follow-up shot. I feel like some people get an early start on the gun season. Not us. We do it the right way. And by us, I mean me, my son James, my grandkids. We will be out there. We are, as you're hearing this show, we are out there in the woods trying to get a deer. It is not only part of the Michigan tradition, but it's part of our family tradition. My granddad did it. My dad did it. I do it. My son James does it. And I'll have 2 of my grandkids out there opening weekend. Trent and my granddaughter Addison's coming home from college to go firearm hunting. So how cool is that? All of us will have different goals. James, who just shot a real big buck in Illinois, says he wants to waylay some does. And if one of the big 3.5-year-old bucks that's wandering around steps in front of him, he would shoot that. I want to shoot a doe. I want some venison for the freezer. I would not shoot a 1.5-year-old buck intentionally, but I might shoot one of the bigger 2.5-year-old bucks if I get a chance. and definitely one of the 3.5-year-olds. Trent, he wants venison. Addison, she wants to shoot a decent buck. So we've all got different goals. We all have different things that we want out of this opening weekend. I was hoping that it was going to be 30 degrees with a little bit of a northeast wind on the opener. I knew exactly where I was going to sit. Well, I was going to sit in that old man base camp blind that's elevated 6 feet off the ground. I got a heater in there all ready to go. It's sitting over a food plot overlooking a really thick area that drops off into state land. I was hoping to sit there. But, warmer temps, a southwest wind, you'll probably find me in a different blind. Because I'm not, listen, if it's going to be raining, I'm not hardcore enough anymore to be sitting in a ladder stand out in the rain. If I can sit in a ground blind out of the rain, I will do that. So I will probably be in this blind that's been on the property we're hunting forever. I mean, it has some history. This blind has some history and some tradition. I can only imagine the number of deer that were shot out of this blind, especially back when baiting was allowed. This blind, right now we've got it overlooking a food plot. We put the food plot out there because you can't bait, right? And I was just talking about this in our Behind the Mic segment before we started recording the show here. I find myself increasingly frustrated because I am competing with people who bait. Just to be clear, in the lower peninsula of Michigan, you technically cannot bait for white-tailed deer because of the concern for CWD, spreading chronic wasting disease. I'm not poo-pooing that concern, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not concerned about CWD as I am, say, EHD. EHD, I feel, is far more devastating to a deer herd when it comes into an area than chronic wasting disease is. And the DNR wants us to take more deer. We have a diminishing number of hunters, yet they want us to take more deer. So give us all the tools to do that. And they have in some ways. They've extended the firearm season. Basically in Michigan now, the lower peninsula, gun season starts November 15th and pretty much runs through the end of the year. For all practical purposes. So they have given us that tool. But, man, they said, put in food plots. They'll bring in deer, yet they won't concentrate deer. Well, we did put in food plots, and they do attract deer to some degree. But it is very, very hard for a casual hunter like me, a weekend warrior like me, not somebody who proclaims to be an expert deer hunter, but somebody who just wants to see deer and, put some venison in the freezer. Yeah, if I could put a little bit of bait out there and hunt over bait. Well, Avery, you're not a very good hunter. Okay, I'm not arguing that. I'm saying if you want us to take more deer, give us every tool possible, and not allowing us to use bait, I think the argument for that is getting pretty thin. I think it's getting pretty old. Anyway, I'll move on. I did some preparation this past week, getting ready for the season. I took a couple of rifles over to Duncan's Outdoor Shop in Bay City. We had Glenn on the show a couple of weeks ago talking about his underground indoor range. And I took my grandson Trent's 30-06 because he was working and didn't have time to go do it himself. And in fact, this is a gun that I gave Trent, so I find it very cool that he wants to use this gun for the deer season. I took his 30-06 bolt action and my Brenton 350 Legend AR style gun over to Duncan's, went downstairs on the 100-yard range, took one shot with Trent's 30-06 at 100 yards, dead on. Put it away. That's all we needed to know. Took one shot with my Brenton AR-15 350 Legend. Boom. Right on. All we needed to know. I packed both guns up, put them back in their cases, and brought them home. That's all we needed to know. Just the confidence, just the verification that the rifles were dead on. And also it takes away any excuses we have. Not saying we wouldn't miss, but if we do, it won't be the gun's fault, right? Starting next Wednesday, we kick off our Ham for the Holidays giveaway with Nick Grillo and the Grillo family from Michigan Brand Meats. This is something we've done for several years now. Every Wednesday night on Wednesday Night Live, for folks who join us, we'll have a giveaway, and you can win a Michigan Brand ham for the holidays, and we'll do this right on through the first of the year now. MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. What else? The beaver problem on the pond behind the house has been addressed. Beavers are gone. Thank you. Rapid River Knife Works. If you want to get a knife in time for Christmas, order now. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. And by the way, the 50th anniversary edition knife that they put together of the Edmund Fitzgerald's sinking, I think they are sold out now. A whole bunch of knives in a couple of days, but it's worth a try. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com, and of course the Avery signature knife as well. Coming up on this week's show, after the break, I want to check in with hardcore deer hunter Charlie Wiltse. He is a Michigan deer hunter who travels the country hunting whitetails, but he is in Michigan this weekend for the opener. Let's talk about deer hunting in Michigan, the firearm season. Then Michigan's meteorologist Mark Torregrossa joins me, not with a forecast for the weekend, because you already know what the weather is this weekend, right? But a forecast for the rest of the season, and maybe onto that season that starts with W, which some people saw W and S already this year. In our second hour, Joe Velchansky of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association talks about the role of trappers in our state today, and I know what the role is. Then Brent Rudolph from the DNR talks about check stations, donating venison, and more. And in our third hour, we change gears and talk with Sir Lance Valentine, about his fishing education weekend last weekend on Saginaw Bay. And we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across our great state of Michigan. And Jonathan, since I forgot to print out that list, you know what's coming up next. I have a list of, documents that I have in front of me for each show, including the affiliates and the billboards and the guests and all that kind of stuff. And every once in a while, like more than once in a while, like on a regular basis, I forget to print out one or the other of those. This week it is my affiliate list, so I'll tell you who those are. I have most of them memorized. I could probably go through the whole list. I just don't want to forget somebody. But I can say that this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Linwood Beach, great facilities, great locations, great people, and John's walking in the door right now to save me, I think. John, I tell you, man, you are amazing. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing, WILS 1320 AM. And let's go north of the bridge, this time to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. And I already told you who this segment is brought to you by. All right, so it is the opening weekend of Michigan's firearm deer season now. A lot of people in Michigan take their deer hunting very seriously. I told you right off the bat, I am not one of them. I am a passionate participant, but I'm not as hardcore as I used to be, and I'm certainly not an expert. Used to be when I had the TV show in the fall, I'd be traveling to different states, deer hunting here in Michigan to try to get a nice buck on camera. These days, I don't care so much. But there are a lot of Michigan hunters who take advantage of seasons across the country, and then come back home to Michigan. Charlie Wiltse is one of those guys. I first met Charlie as we were both working with the Primal Outdoors, the Primal Tree Stand Company. These days, I'm working with Old Man, so is Charlie. We've kind of kept in touch, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Charlie, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Mike. Always great to be talking with you.
Well, listen, it is a real pleasure. The pleasure is mine, and you've had quite a fall so far in your adventures across the country. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's been a very blessed fall. I started in September. I was out west in northern Utah chasing elk on public ground, an over-the-counter tag. We were 17 miles from the trailhead. Base camp was 10,500 feet. Just an amazing experience. Took mules back there. Really tough hunting. The rut was slow. It was really dry, but it was just amazing to be in the backcountry. I absolutely loved that. Again, it was really tough elk hunting, but it was a great way to start the season. And I just got back yesterday from a Midwest tour. I was gone for 12 days in northwest Missouri, dropped down to Kansas, back to northwest Missouri, and then to Kentucky. So it has been quite the last 2 weeks for me.
And you did have some luck, didn't you?
I did. I actually, every state I was in, I saw really good mature bucks. Missouri and Kentucky, I just couldn't capitalize. I passed on some younger bucks that'll be great bucks in a couple years. But I hunted Kansas for the first time since 2010. On my first morning, I just had an absolute stud buck, mature. We think he's 5.5 years old, over 250 pounds on the hoof. He just gave me an opportunity I couldn't pass up, and I put the dart into work and got my first Kansas buck. It was a great experience.
Man, I love Kansas. I haven't hunted it recently. I used to quite a bit. The biggest buck I've ever taken was a 150-inch 10-point out of Kansas, so I love that state. What is it, though, Charlie, about a state like Kansas that makes it such a big buck state, more so than Michigan, our beloved Michigan? And we're not talking bad about Michigan, but two different experiences. What is the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. No, not talking bad about Michigan at all, but it's just pure management. Kansas is a draw state. I was really fortunate to draw. The first time I applied last fall thinking I wasn't going to get drawn, and I did. So it's a one buck state for residents, non-residents, and again, it's a draw state. So very limited entries. The way they manage their whitetails is incredible. Mike, I arrived there last Monday night, and I drove around with my good buddy John, who I met from Missouri, and he moved down there, and he's managing some farms now. And literally in 1 hour on Monday night, and this was an hour before dark, we saw 8 different mature bucks out in the fields, and they weren't crazy yet, but they were, just kind of slowly pushing behind does. But 8 mature bucks as we're just driving around in real rural area of northeast Kansas. I mean, it's incredible. You almost think you're dreaming.
All right, so you're probably not going to see that in most areas of Michigan, yet we love our state of Michigan, and this weekend, the opening weekend of the firearm deer season, is still very special. So how do we approach deer hunting here with a gun in Michigan, Charlie?
Right. Well, absolutely. We live in the greatest state in the country. There's no doubt. So we've got gun season, coming up here on Saturday. With it being the weekend, we're obviously going to have even more hunters out in the woods, which is good. It'll help keep them deer moving, but there's going to be more pressure. So I definitely would say, those first couple days for sure. I mean, if you can hunt all day long, just be in the woods, because a lot of times people be coming in mid-morning, late morning, pushing them deer, and basically strategy is really important when it comes to killing consistent bucks. But unfortunately, right now with the rut's still going on, which is also a good thing. And now gun law, a lot of people coming in the woods, you just never know what's going to happen. So you just got to be out in the woods. And one thing that I say, I've talked to a few buddies since I've been back, Mike. I know the rut is still kicking strong in a lot of areas. So if you can hunt all day long and be a downwind side of a bedding area, especially that mid-morning to mid-afternoon, I cannot stress enough, if you can be downwind side of a bedding area, you are going to have some great success, especially on the midday bucks that are cruising.
Boy, I hear what you're saying. It makes complete sense, and it seems so obvious when I hear you say it, Charlie Wiltse. But that takes some discipline to go out there before it gets light and sit all day long, during the normal part of the day when sometimes you can get a little drowsy, a little sleepy, your mind starts to wander. To sit there and grind it out during that mid part of the day, that's not an easy thing to do for some people.
No, it's not easy. It isn't. I always say it's mentally harder than it is physically. because it's so easy, whether you're in a ground blind or in tree stand, you just say, that's it, I'm done. I want to go get some warm food. I want to go lay down on the couch with a blanket, but mentally, if you can put in that little extra time, I guarantee you some of the biggest bucks I have shot, Michigan, out of state, are from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 to 2 in the afternoon. And that's archery and gun. And obviously it helps a lot during that rut. But, rut here in Michigan, you're basically are still going to be even mature bucks at the end of November into early December. They're still checking. They're still searching. So if you can put the time in, especially that midday with the people moving out of the woods and, with the rut where it's at, it really is going to help increase your success.
So use the pressure, use the people moving around, use that to your advantage.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely.
Now, will you, Charlie, I know you love your bow hunting. Are you one of those guys who uses your bow right on through the gun season here in Michigan?
No, I've done that before. Well, I shouldn't say I might this year. I've got a couple spots really tight. If the wind's right, I will use a bow. But I still like to take advantage of having the firearm in hand. Even for southern Michigan now, which I try to do a little bit of hunting still, we got these 450s that can reach out 150, 200 yards, like a high power rifle. So I still do like to get out with a gun in hand.
Yeah, there is something gratifying about, you're out there earlier in the season with a bow. You're limited, in my case, I'm going to say to 40 yards or so. Even though I'm shooting a crossbow, and I know I can hit a target at 60, 70 yards with a crossbow, I'm not going to take a shot at a deer. And I don't care what people say about a crossbow being a cross gun. In my mind, it is still a bow. It's archery gear. I'm going to limit my shots to 40 yards. So to get out there now during the gun season with the 350 Legend, and know that if I see a deer and it's a deer that I want to harvest, I can take a shot at it realistically. There is something pretty gratifying about that.
Yeah, there sure is. Especially we all know, I'm really blessed to do a lot of hunting, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So, when they can be out in the woods, and that's why, again, I stress, if you have the opportunity, be in the woods. It can happen at any time. But it is nice to have that advantage of having a firearm where you can reach out. Obviously you have a lot more advantages than the bow and arrow.
Well, and you bring up something that I want to follow up on. You are a hardcore hunter. You target mature bucks. You're out there a lot, and you are willing to let smaller bucks pass, knowing that you may not get a shot at a so-called mature animal. But that's just you, Charlie. You're kind of the crazy guy out there in today's deer hunting world.
Oh yeah. My dad constantly is making fun of me and ragging on me about the amount of bucks I choose to pass. On this last trip alone, I passed, at least 15 different bucks that were in archery range. And in Missouri, at my Missouri lease, Mike, for the last 3 years, I've been passing mid 140s, 150 bucks.
Oh, it's crazy.
And you know what? I got to live with that, and I'm okay with it, because if I want to shoot a booner, I cannot kill that buck. And I love watching them. I was able to watch those bucks. I watched 150-inch buck, pushing a doe through the CRP in Missouri. And I'll tell you what, Mike, I was so pumped and excited just to watch that. But I knew that I wasn't going to kill him, and a lot of people do say I'm crazy for that.
Well, Charlie, I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, and I want you to think about this during the break, because when we come back, and don't answer it now, but when we come back, I'm going to ask you about this concept of, even though you are a more sophisticated deer hunter and you will hold out for a bigger buck, what are your thoughts on people who shoot smaller bucks? Because in today's world, a lot of people are giving those smaller buck hunters some grief. Personally, I think it's a mistake, but I want to hear what you, Charlie Wiltse, think about this. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we will continue our conversation, in fact, wrap up our conversation with Charlie about hunting the Michigan firearm season and what his thoughts are on that. And then we'll wrap up the hour with Michigan's meteorologist, Mark Torregrossa. What does the weather look like for the rest of the season? In fact, that season that starts with W that's coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Carroll on two stations, in fact, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, way north of the bridge, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Boy, why? Listen, Michigan-based VersaSkins. Paul Perone has come up with a great concept. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? For example, here on the opening weekend, I'm wearing my VersaSkins, and all I did was take my VersaSkins Blaze Orange vest, put it over my jacket, I snapped it on, I zipped it on, and I'm good to go. If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. If you are a saddle hunter, VersaSkins can help you out there as well. Go to the website versaskins.com, that's versaskins.com, or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. VersaSkins, just change your skin for the season you're in. And right now, the season we are in here in Michigan is the firearm deer season. It's got to be one of the biggest. It's still got to be the biggest weekend of the year in the outdoors here in Michigan. I am out there this weekend with my family, my son James, 2 of my grandkids. Charlie Wiltse is out there this weekend as well, and he has spent the entire season traveling the country in these big buck states, holding out for trophy deer. He's back here in Michigan. He's still holding out for a trophy. But let me ask you this, Charlie. For the folks who aren't as lucky as you are, who haven't been traveling the country looking for big bucks and maybe only have this weekend to hunt, what if they want to shoot a smaller buck? What do you say to those people?
Well, what I say to those people, Mike, is I wish them the best luck possible to shoot whatever size white-tailed deer makes them happy. If that's a spike, if that's a 4-point, if that's a 6-point. I mean, at the end of the day, if they're happy, if they get that feel of why we want to be out in the doors when you pull that trigger and you harvest an animal, whether it be a small buck or a big buck, and then the icing on the cake is some of the best meat in the entire world, I can never hold somebody back and never not tell somebody congrats on a small buck. If they're happy, I'm happy.
God bless you, Charlie Wiltse, for saying that, because in today's world, all too many people want to judge their fellow hunters and tell them, try to mandate and dictate to them what they should shoot. And I don't subscribe to that philosophy at all.
No, I don't either, Mike. I mean, obviously, yeah, it'd be great here in Michigan, especially here in mid to northern Michigan, if we would have more consistent, bigger bucks, yes, that'd be great. And if you can own some land and you can get on the same page with the people around you, well, then you can do that, but you got to be transparent. You got to be communicative. But if it's, somebody that doesn't get to hunt much, you're on public ground, you're on a small little chunk of private ground, again, if you pull that trigger and you harvest a white-tailed deer and you are happy, that's what it's all about. And then you got the meat in the freezer. And just want to give you a quick example, 150 acres on our family forever in Ogama County, Lupton area, so northeast part of Ogama County. Beautiful county, lots of deer, not known for a lot of big bucks. My dad's 75 years old, great hunter, great fisherman. He shoots at least 1 buck, sometimes 2 bucks a year. Now he's on the crossbows. And I'll tell you what, Mike, it's a 4-point, or if it's that last big buck he shot a number of years back at 10-point, he is just as happy. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And how can you take that away from somebody? So I support anybody to be out in the woods, just getting away from our cell phones and everything else. And if you want to shoot a small buck, shoot a small buck.
Okay, you said getting away from your cell phone. Am I not supposed to take my cell phone into the woods? Because I've been doing it wrong, Charlie.
No. You know what I mean? I'm trying to say, like, just getting out in nature. We all get so wrapped up in everyday life. I mean, I do it, the businesses and family and everything else. But it's your time now just to kind of to break away from that, decompress a little. So I was just saying, put the phone down a little bit, enjoy, the Michigan outdoors. And if you want to shoot a smaller buck, I don't see any reason why you should be judged for it.
No, and I appreciate that, Charlie. And I'm just joking with you on the cell phones. I do believe, though, that a lot of deer's lives have been spared because we were looking down at our screens instead of looking out in the woods as we should be.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's becoming more prevalent more and more now every day. I think YouTube has saved thousands and thousands and thousands of whitetail lives.
No doubt about that. Charlie Wiltse, always a pleasure talking with you, buddy. Good luck here in the Michigan season. And I know that when the Michigan season's done, you're not done. You're going to keep chasing big trophies across the country. So I have much respect for you, Charlie. And I'd love to stay in touch, and congrats on that big buck. Let's wish you luck on a big buck here in Michigan.
Thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure talking to you. Great luck for the rest of your hunting season, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. In my case, it will take luck. In Charlie's case, it's skill, right? In Charlie's case, it's skill. Like a guy like my son, James, he is a hardcore hunter. For him, there's very, very little luck involved. It is a matter of skill. For me, you know what? It's mostly luck, and I will take that. I will own that. I will admit that. All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap up this opening hour for opening weekend with Michigan's meteorologist Mark Torregrossa. I was kind of hoping this weekend could be cold and snowy, but Mother Nature decided she wanted to make it a little bit warmer, a little bit rainy, although the forecast for Sunday looks a little colder. The wind's going to switch. Well, we'll talk with Mark not about this opening weekend weather, because we know what the weather's like this opening weekend, right? Let's talk about the forecast for the rest of the season. And again, the wintertime season coming up. That's after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM, and north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. Now, look, and I know you're not planting food plots right now, but you might be hunting over a food plot. As you look at that food plot in front of you this weekend, are you happy with how it turned out? I mean, listen, in our case, when we put in food plots, it was so dry, so very, very dry, that we didn't have the results that maybe we wanted. But next year it's going to be different, right? And I want to be working with Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. And when we are done here recording this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, we will record this month's Killer Food Plots podcast with a special guest, a guy who shot a very, very nice buck out of a Killer Food Plots podcast. We'll talk about that and more. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com. Okay, the weather, as we know, plays a big role in everything we do in the outdoors. I was hoping that it was going to be cold and snowy this weekend, but, you know, as we're out there now, it's a little bit warmer, a southwest wind. Maybe cooler tomorrow, maybe a northwest wind, so things are looking better. So we know what the weather's like for this opening weekend, but what about the rest of the season and beyond, to that season that starts with, all right, to the winter season and snow? I mean, we've already had winter-like weather and snow across much of the state, and for that, I either blame or credit Michigan's meteorologist, Mark Torregrossa, who's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. But you're used to that by now, aren't you, Mark?
Oh yeah, it's my job is a zero-sum game. Do you know what that means? That means 50% of people love it and 50% hate it, and it cancels out to zero.
And you've been doing this a long time, so it's no big deal. But what about the rest of this firearm season, the next couple of weeks? What are we going to see, Mark?
I love it. I love the weather pattern because you are going to have to watch the weather. I would say in general terms, we're going to be slightly warmer than normal. I don't see us having a big, long-lasting cold outbreak as in highs, afternoon highs in the 20s and 30s. So if you're not so excited about hunting in the snow and cold like Mike Avery still is.
No,
like,
listen, I like the snow and cold for the deer season. And after that, forget about it.
Forget about it. Okay. And on the other hand, I don't think it's going to be extremely warm, and it looks like we're in a very active storm track where about every 2 or 3 days, a 6-hour window of rain and perhaps snow can come through the area. Just the unofficial, unscientific thing of me roaming around Michigan lately is what I've observed. And, a lot of my family, my sons, big hunters, and when the storms approach, the deer are moving, crossing the roads the day before. So you're going to have plenty of opportunity. And just remember, when you're looking at a weather forecast and the storm is approaching, you'll tend to go to a southeast to southwest wind. And then as the storm moves onto the east, you'll tend to go to a northwest to north to sometimes northeast winds. So you're going to have a lot of switching winds day to day. And, I'm going to characterize it a lot of afternoons in the 30s and 40s. If you're hunting in far southern Michigan, you could still get a 55 to 60 degree afternoon.
What about, and I'll take that, Mark. I'll take that. Of course, we've got to take what Mother Nature gives us, right?
Yeah, I think it's a comfortable type thing. It's not extreme one way or the other. I think it's a good thing. Sometimes in weather, normal is really good.
So let's look beyond this. Let's look to that, because I know you've been doing this already, for a winter forecast. What do you see? What are we looking like?
Okay, well, I think first off, it will not be a non-winter. Remember, some of these in the past decade when we've had strong El Niños we've gotten through the winter and gone like, that wasn't really a Michigan winter.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that case this year. I'm going to call it a typical 2010 to 2020 winter, which is not as severe as what we had in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, but I think it'll be a real winter. We always factor in that 800-pound gorilla, the warmer globe, the warmer oceans, warmer polar regions, means we get a break from time to time, maybe a week, maybe winter takes a break for a week here and a week there. But I think it will be a winter. There are a couple of things. La Nina is forming. That tends to make Michigan a little more wintry, a little wetter. That could be the interesting thing, active storm track. And then the other thing is, you probably never heard of this, but you will now, the QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation. The winds around the polar region every other year about spin from spinning west to spinning east. And when it blows from the east, it allows cold air to dislodge, and we're in that colder QBO pattern this year. So we have a couple of things that say true harsh winter, and then we have the 800-pound gorilla, the foundational thing, the warmer globe, that kind of cancel out, and we get a real Michigan winter.
Michigan's meteorologist Mark Torregrossa. I guess we're just going to have to follow you on MLive.com and farmerweather.com to keep up to the latest latest trends. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for the insight. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back in hour number 2, we're talking about trapping, and then we'll talk more about this Michigan's deer season with Brent Rudolph of the Michigan DNR. That's coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. Thanks, Mark.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And I do believe the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM affiliate. It is nice to know, though, if you can't do that, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in a small part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, it's nice to know there's another way to listen to the content of the show, and that is via the podcast. Now, everybody has a podcast. I get this. And I have a podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. The content is exactly the same, but you hear it somewhere else other than your local radio station, and you can't hear it until after your local radio stations have aired the show. So Sunday afternoon, I make the podcast available. You can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on the Facebook page, and all of the usual podcast outlets, including iHeart and SoundCloud and Spotify and Stitcher and Player, and even on YouTube. So listen for that Sunday afternoons at 6, and you can hear the podcast version of the show after our broadcast stations have aired it. I do like podcasting, though. I think it's an interesting form of communication. It's very, very hot. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere these days. As I said, everybody has a podcast. I do podcasts each month for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, and Killer Food Plots. And when we are done here in the studio today recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Killer Food Plots podcast, including a story from a guy who shot a very, very nice buck out of a Killer Food Plots podcast. So keep an ear out for that. You know, this is the opening weekend of the firearm season here in Michigan, and a lot of people are thinking about deer hunting. I'm thinking about deer hunting. In fact, as you're hearing this show, I may well be in a blind trying to put some venison in the freezer. I do have a fascination, though, in my soul for trapping, and I'll tell you why. My dad was a trapper. I grew up watching him, and I never had the opportunity to go out with him that I remember. I wish I did, or I wish I could remember. He used to trap muskrats. I think trappers are the most knowledgeable outdoorsmen and women in our state. Because think about this. Okay, if you're, say, a bow hunter for deer, you've got to get a whitetail within, 40 yards of where you are to have a chance at harvesting it. And now that the gun season is open, I'm out there with my 350 Legend. If I get a big doe or a decent-sized buck at, maybe 100 yards, I might have a pretty good chance at harvesting that animal. That's 100 yards. But think about a trapper. You've got to get a trap set where the critter that you're after steps on a 1-inch square pad or swims through a foot-by-foot area? How hard is that? As I told you, we recently had a trapper on the pond behind the house, and I watched him take 2 beavers out of the area, and it was fascinating. It was a fascinating process. Joe Velchansky is the president of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about this. Joe, welcome back. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, it's a real pleasure. As I said, I have so much respect for trappers. Tell me about what trapping in Michigan is all about these days, Joe.
Well, Mike, as you probably know, the fur market has taken a dive over the last 7 or 8 years. As we all know, it's a global commodity, so supply and demand. But a lot of trappers are still going out, but they're doing different stuff with their catch. Instead of selling it at fur sales or sending it to Canada to the auction houses, a lot of trappers are taking it and having it tanned or tanning it themselves. And then once it's tanned, it's preserved forever, and you can make garments out of it. You can give it away. You can make wall hangers out of it. So people are still trapping. It's a great way to be outdoors. And, like you said earlier, if you're a bow hunter, if you're a deer hunter, you've got to get that deer within 30 or 40 yards. And we have to have that animal, a land animal, step on that trigger or the dog or the pin that's no bigger than a silver dollar. But yeah, trapping is alive and well in Michigan.
So how do you do this, Joe? I mean, how do you make a set? How do you know where to put out a set? And how do you put out a trap that can convince an animal or just coincidentally put it in a spot an animal is going to step? I mean, this is not something you learn overnight, I suspect.
No, No, there's several ways to learn. I was a trapper ed instructor for 11 or 12 years. That's probably one of the best ways to learn. It's a DNR program. If your listeners get on the DNR website and click on education, there'll be a drop-down window, and you can click on hunter safety, bow safety, or trapper education, and find a class near you. And then that's probably the best way. Or find a trapper that someone that traps, and ask if you can tag along, watch what they do. YouTube, if you watch the right videos, there's a million videos on YouTube to watch to learn. But my best advice is to get with another trapper or take the trapper education course.
That's one thing I've learned about your group is you don't really have secrets. You want people to know how you do things, and you want to encourage people to join your group of trappers.
That's exactly true. We want to teach people the responsible and ethical way to trap. Just because someone can go out and buy a trap, we don't want them to, unknowingly put a trap where it shouldn't be. You talked about how to catch an animal, what it takes. First and foremost, you want to avoid areas where there's domestic animals. So, if you have permission on a farm, you don't want to trap behind the barn. You want to be as far away from the house and the buildings as possible. And so, even if the landowner says, "Oh no, my dog is always tied up," well, don't take his word for it, because that animal will get loose. But if you're at the back of that 80 acres, your chances of catching a domestic animal are greatly reduced. And I'm proud to say I haven't caught a domestic animal in quite a number of years. But that's one of the best ways to get started. Like I said, education. We promote sound scientific management, and this is a renewable resource. We teach trapper ed through our association. So anything we can do to promote trapping and educate new trappers, we'll do it.
So what critters can we trap in Michigan these days, or what are some of the more common targets that folks are after, Joe?
Well, you just named one. The beaver is a very common one. Muskrats are very, very common. Well, maybe not so common this year with the drought we've had. A lot of muskrat ponds I've trapped are dried up this year. Muskrat, beaver, coyote is a big one. Coyotes, especially people trying to manage their property for deer and turkeys, they want to get rid of those. Raccoons are another one. Raccoons are very, very plentiful. And if you're trapping raccoons, you're going to catch possums, you're going to catch skunk. But the beaver, they can do damage, so they have to be controlled. And what we want to do, we just want to manage the resource. And I'm going to say a sentence here.
Yeah.
I've said it on your other broadcast too. The cruelest thing we can do to wildlife is fail to manage it.
I love that. That is so succinct, and it says it all there, Joe.
It does. It really does.
So how does a trapper do that? I mean, because there have been a lot of negative publicity toward trappers from the anti-groups that are really ignorant or intentionally putting a bad spin on things, which I think is a sin, a crime. How do you manage these things? Because some of your traps, in fact, most of your traps are not kill traps. You can trap and release an animal, right?
Right, exactly. So answering your question, how can we do this? How can we get the word out? Is tell the truth. We are not the boogeyman. We are not the monsters. Disney had a cartoon called The Fox and the Hound, and it showed a trapper using a trap with teeth on it. Traps with teeth are illegal in Michigan. They've been illegal for probably 40 or 50 years. So they're not even, you can have them on your wall, you can have them on your desk, but you can't use them out in the field. All we are using, those foothold traps that you mentioned, those are just a restraining device. That animal gets caught. If it's an animal you want to harvest, you can harvest it then. If it's a small raccoon and you want to release it, you can release it unharmed. Or if it's if you're fox trapping and you want more fox in your area, and you see it's a female fox, you can let it go unharmed.
Yeah.
So,
Disney, Walt Disney didn't do a lot of favors in the way he portrayed wildlife, that's for sure. We're talking with Joe Velchansky. He is the president of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. Their website is MTPCA, for Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. MTPCA.com, MTPCA.com. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, more with Joe about trapping here in Michigan today. I find it fascinating, and it is very much needed in today's world. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Sandusky in the Thumb, WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, you know what sound that is. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife coming out of my pocket and locking it back open. This one just happens to be, well, it's the prototype version of the Mike Avery signature knife. So you can't get one like this, but when you get one a lot like this. Rapid River Knives, the website rapidriverknifeworks.com, rapidriverknifeworks.com. Now, I usually send people to the showroom, but we had Chris Durson of Rapid River on the show last week, and he said, look at it, we look like we've been robbed. We got no knives in the showroom right now. If you want a Rapid River knife for Christmas, order it now. Go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. Use the promo code MikeAvery15. That's MikeAvery15. Get 15% off everything in the store, except for the Mike Avery signature knife. We want to keep all the profits in there that we can, because the money from this knife goes to help a group called Outdoor Driven, designed to get first responders and veterans on outdoor adventures. So rapidriverknifeworks.com. And again, I'm not one of those people who, wants to start talking about Christmas and celebrating Christmas. And, it hasn't even been Thanksgiving yet, right? But in this case, if you want to make sure you get a Rapid River knife in time for Christmas, order it now. rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. All right, right now we're talking with Joe Velchansky, who happens to be the president of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, a very, very cool group, a group that has been under attack from anti-hunters, even, I would say, under attack from our Natural Resources Commission, but that's a different topic in itself. So, Joe, these days we're gonna concentrate on the positive, talking about the role of trappers and promoting what you folks do. And I know you're getting more involved in this. You are very, very public relations oriented, and I give you credit for that.
Thanks. And it's all about education, and letting people know that we can manage this resource. We don't want to deplete it. We don't want to eradicate it. We just want to manage it. So it's a balance, a happy balance, if you can. People don't want beavers chewing on their trees. People don't want beavers blocking up their streams. But we don't want to eliminate the beaver either. And I'm going to give you an example. Up in the Black River watershed, there's a stretch of river, Mike, that's a mile long, and there's 17 beaver dams on that river.
Ooh.
And with the trouts, with trout and grayling possibly in that area, those beaver, the fish can't go anywhere. And if you release those beaver dams all at once, now you've got the sediment, the silt that can plug the fish's gills and kill the fish. Again, this is all from beaver. So we have to manage those beaver and control them and just control the population. So, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and speaking of beavers, when I was a kid, I never saw a beaver. We never had beavers wandering around. These days, they're all over the place. And the trapper that we brought in, talking to him, beavers are a real problem these days. I mean, they're everywhere. They're in city limits. They're next to condo associations. I mean, it's surprising how the population has spread. And if you didn't have trappers out there like you guys, boy, this would be even a bigger problem than it is, Joe.
That's true. It's true. Beavers in Michigan have been noted to burrow underneath the train tracks, and they actually caused a train derailment on the east side of the state back in the early 80s. They're very destructive. They can be very destructive. Everything from beaver to skunks under your crawl space, or under your shed, under your garage, woodchucks burrowing under. But trappers can manage those resources.
Well, let me ask you a stupid question, Joe. How would you trap a skunk without getting sprayed?
There's several different ways. You can use a body gripping trap, which is a kill type trap, and if done correctly, they won't spray. You can use live traps, and where they they're in the trap, and use a old blanket or an old sheet and cover that live trap, and you can take it and dispatch it away from your house. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to dispatch a skunk without getting sprayed. I do it every year. I save the pelts. I'm looking at some skunk pelts hanging on my wall right now. They're beautiful. I actually made a hat out of some skunk pelts. So,
that would be cool.
without getting sprayed, without any smell.
So let's talk about this process. You don't want to get into trapping unless you're willing to put some work into it.
Absolutely. Once you put a trap in the ground, or if you place a trap in the water, now you've made a commitment. You made a commitment to those animals that you're trapping. So, in Michigan, a live restraining trap, or a foothold trap above ground, needs to be checked once a day. In the lower Michigan, the UP, it's different. The water traps or the killing traps or drowning sets, those don't have to be checked every day, but I do highly recommend it, because if you have an animal on the end of that trap or in that trap underwater, you can't catch another one if it's plugged up with one already. So it's always good to check them early, and that way the animal hasn't been in that trap that long. But yes, it's a commitment once you put a trap in the ground.
So what is the process once you harvest this animal of getting a good skin, a good fur out of it? There are several steps, right? And it's not something you can do overnight.
Really, it is.
Really?
And what I like to do is, sure. Most of us that are trappers have either hunted some type of game before we picked up trapping. Whether it's you're squirrel hunted or rabbit hunted or deer hunting. And it's no different than skinning out a deer that's hanging upside down. It really is not much different. The cuts are a little bit different. You don't cut them all the way open, like you would a deer. But there's different steps to go by. Someone that wants to get into trapping, I would highly recommend they start with a species like raccoon that's very plentiful, and they're not terribly hard to trap. You can use dog-proof traps with those, which is species specific for raccoon, and they skin fairly easy, and they're easy to put up. So
okay, so this process
it's not that tough.
This process of putting them up, you stretch it? Do you salt it? Do you dry it? What are the steps involved here, Joe?
Good question. So when you first catch that animal and dispatch it, you bring it home, you hang it up, and you skin it out, and take the hide off the carcass, and then you turn it inside out, and you put it on a fleshing beam, which looks like an ironing board. That's the best way I could describe it. Some of them are a little curved, and you use what's called a fleshing knife. It almost looks like a wooden draw knife. It's a two-handled affair, and you use a sharp edge or a dull edge to cut through the gristle and push the fat away without cutting into the skin or the leather. And once you do all that and you get all that fat and gristle off of the hide, then you can put it on a wire stretcher or a wooden stretcher. And you don't overstretch it. You just stretch it so it's snug or taut. And then you can pin it or hook it so it stays dry like that. And I have a fur shed that I keep heated with a wood stove. And you let it dry for 4 or 5 days. And it'll look like it's sweating. It looks just like it's sweating. It's the oil coming out of the skin. And you use a rag, you wipe that down, and then you can, after about 5 days, you can remove it from the stretcher, and now it's ready to be sent to a tannery or sold or whatever you want to do with it.
So is there value in these furs, like the beavers that came out of the pond or a coyote? I mean, what's the value on a fur these days?
So that's a great question. Like I said, supply and demand. A few years ago, beaver were big blanket beaver were worth $50 to $60 a piece because of the movie or the TV program Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah,
everybody wanted the cowboy hat.
Yep.
And so, but since then, the price of that has dropped off. Skunks this year are a hot commodity. They're paying up to $25 to $30 for a skunk. A nice wide white stripes. The whiter the better. And there were skunk tails were, selling extremely well this year. There's in the Jewish community, there's a certain type of hat they use, and those hats are made by skunk tails, believe it or not. And those Jewish boys or young men receive those hats sometimes when they make their bar mitzvah. And I wish I had the name of that hat with me, but I don't. So again, it's all supply and demand. But when you speak of, let's say, beaver, for example, there's more to just the hide than that. You've got the meat off of a beaver is delicious. It really is delicious. And there's, off the back hams and the back straps, there's quite a bit of meat off of let's say a 35 or 40 pound beaver. And then you've got the skull. You can clean that skull or have it cleaned. And now you've got another collectible trophy, similar to a bear skull or deer antlers or a turkey, turkey tails. So, yeah.
So
I'm sorry, I'm babbling.
No. I'm enjoying every part of it because again, I am fascinated by this. I guess the crux of it, though, you're not going to get into trapping to get rich these days.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what I tell students and what I tell people that want to get into it, I deer hunt, I turkey hunt, I squirrel hunt, I rabbit hunt. I'm like you. I'm very diverse. And I get, if I'm lucky, I get a buck, which I did this morning. I got a buck this morning.
You got a buck this morning? Oh, good for you. Congrats.
I got an 8-point.
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
But, so I'll have a nice set of antlers to hang on the wall. I'll get some good meals out of it for sure. But I don't get anything back monetarily from deer hunting, turkey hunting, squirrel hunting.
Yep.
Where some of this, trapping, it can help cover some of the costs. If you sell it, sell it right.
Joe, listen.
Mark,
I got to go just because we're out of time. But I could talk with you about trapping, I think, for the next couple of hours because I find this so fascinating. I appreciate you as the president of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association joining us this week. The website is mtpca.com. mtpca.com. Go to that website, learn more about trapping. I think it is a part of our tradition, our history. I mean, trapping's been around forever, right? And it's still here today, and I think that's so cool. We'll take a break. When we come back, Brent Rudolph of the DNR talking about deer hunting and what to do with those. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba, WCHT 600 AM, 93.5 FM. Well, this is the opening weekend of the firearm deer season here in Michigan. I don't think it's as big of a celebration as it used to be. For one thing, we have fewer hunters, and there are, more seasons, more deer seasons open before the 15th than there used to be. But you know what? It's still probably the biggest single day of the year in the outdoors, especially this year when the opening falls on a Saturday. I mean, there are a lot of us out there right now. In fact, as you're hearing this show, I am out there. I am out there with my son James, two of my grandkids, and we're trying to knock down deer. We're trying to put venison in the freezer, but more importantly, we are celebrating the history and tradition of deer hunting, not just from a statewide perspective, but for us, from our family perspective. How cool is that? Brent Rudolph is a DNR wildlife biologist. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Brent, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You know, I'm doing good. And you know what? If we're lucky, as people are hearing this show this weekend, we might already have some venison down on the ground. Are you out this weekend, Brent?
I'm going to be working and doing all the good things that DNR folks do through the weekend, but I will be out. I will get out. Hope springs eternal when it comes to firearm deer season time.
Okay, so let's talk about that. When we put down a deer, what is the next process? We have to legally, we still have to report that now, right?
That's right. Since 2022, it became mandatory. You got 72 hours to do that harvest report. And you can have someone else report a deer on behalf of yourself if you need to. We've continued to try and provide all the technical support we can to make that a relatively painful process. And it's going pretty well, but I'm sure there's probably still some folks that aren't real happy or might have some quibbles about it, but it is very helpful, and we provide the resources to help step people through that process as needed.
Well, why do we have to do this? What do you do with this information? Why do you want it? Some people say, well, the DNR is just trying to figure out where I'm hunting, what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know that some folks are worried about, after they've already taken a deer that we're trying to track down or report something out. The bottom line is we've used, as you well know, as a lot of folks know, for many years we've used a mail survey after the deer season to generate the estimates of how many deer were taken. And over the years, the participation, the return rate on those surveys continued to go down and down and down. Still better than a lot of other surveys and stuff you get in your mailbox, but it really wasn't going to continue to be a reliable method. So the harvest reporting was implemented. It provides us with some other flexibility to look at ways of, using different regulations approaches and things, or licensing approaches and things in the future. But the bottom line is it's the important tool we have to figure out what the ultimate outcome is of hunting effort year after year as we continue to manage the deer herd. Can I just report my harvest at one of the check stations, or are those even a thing these days? So we have stations. The focus is very strongly shifted for those stations to be for disease surveillance, whether it's chronic wasting disease or bovine tuberculosis. We have counties specifically that we're soliciting, help for surveillance there. There are folks there that if you have questions or problems with reporting, you can stop in. Now, there are also drop boxes. There are unmanned locations, so you'd want to go to a place that has personnel available, and they can help step through the process if needed. But it's not going to be the same in terms of just coming in and scanning through and having a little bit of information, collected like check stations kind of operated in the past.
At one time, weren't you folks even collecting heads in disease areas, or am I thinking of something else? Is that still going on?
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And yes, that's still going on again for many, many years now in northeastern Michigan, our bovine tuberculosis area. We have been collecting deer heads for TB surveillance. For chronic wasting disease, in the last several years, we've had an approach that's involved targeting specific counties so that eventually we'll have collected a minimum number of deer samples from every single county. So whereas TB focus right now is on those counties where we know we have an ongoing infection, chronic wasting disease, we've kind of continued to rotate through the state, so we do some surveillance everywhere. And those stations are still operating. As I mentioned, some of them are manned. Others are drop boxes where you can provide some information and simply leave the head behind. Folks are still there to address questions and talk and interact, but obviously their focus is on collecting the samples for TB or CWD. So they'll be happy to chat as they have time, but their focus is going to be on that surveillance effort first, and then answering other questions you might have as needed after.
Brent, listen, I got to take a break, but can I ask you to stick around for another segment? I want to follow up on this TB CWD thing, and I also know that we've got to talk about too donating venison to help feed others as well. So you can give me some more time.
You bet. Hang on.
I appreciate that. We're talking with Brent Rudolph, DNR wildlife biologist for the DNR. The website for the DNR is michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. I got to take a break. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment. Well, it's actually, I'm going to take a little executive privilege here, and I'm going to turn it from the Ask Avery segment to the Avery Asking Rudolph segment. It still works out. It'll all work out, trust me. So we'll take a break, talk to Brent a little bit more, and then in our third hour this week, we're going to change gears completely and talk about fall fishing with Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across our great state of Michigan, including WHTC in Holland. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Manistee, WMLQ 97.7. Let's see if we can go north of the bridge. Oh, yes, let's go north of the bridge once again. Let's go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment usually works, this is your chance to send me a question, something you'd like to hear me address. Maybe it's something directly or something I can pass along to the folks in the DNR or something like that. The way you get those questions to me is the best way. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. However, this week, we have somebody from the DNR on with me, so I thought let's just make it an extension. We have Brent Rudolph, wildlife biologist from the Michigan DNR. Brent, once again, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this week. Thank you very much.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so listen, you were talking before the break about monitoring for disease, CWD and TB. I got to be honest, I'm sick of hearing about CWD, and I'm not seeing the damage to the deer herd that, say, like an EHD does. Why are we still so concerned, Brent?
Well, CWD is a slowly progressing, slowly accumulating disease. It's very different than EHD, where we see these abrupt outbreaks. The other key difference is CWD is something sustained within a deer population. It has that opportunity to continue to build up and have longer range impacts, whereas EHD is something that's transmitted from a vector, from the insect that passes that virus to deer. It's not within the deer population. So I completely understand and realize that people are seeing a direct and immediate impact from EHD. Our deer population rebounds and doesn't sustain that within itself, and it's really a different animal than what we're dealing with to try and contend with CWD on a longer-term basis.
I would like to have a discussion with you in the future, and it wouldn't be fair to basically ambush you now, but sometime in the future, I want to bring you back on, and I want to talk about CWD and baiting and all these things, because as a Michigan deer hunter, I'm really starting to get frustrated by this. But let's save this for a future conversation.
You bet. Yeah, I'd be happy to revisit that with you.
I appreciate that. Hunter Appreciation Deer Drop-In Mondays. What is that all about?
Yeah. So as we were talking about, the old approach with deer check stations provided a lot more opportunity for folks to just kind of come in. Obviously the focus was on having successful hunters come through and get their deer checked, but with those operations going on, it was also just a chance to talk to someone from the DNR in a more informal setting. So with our focus having shifted to needing to use kind of limited resources on disease testing for those in-person stations, we've added these drop-in Mondays. So there's a couple points throughout the year. November 17th will be the next one, where you can come in with your deer or jaw and have it aged if you want, or whether or not you were successful, you can literally drop in. Someone from the DNR will be there and can address questions. You can just have a chance to interact with someone through this time of year to learn more about or to share some of your stories and information and kind of celebrate part of the important things that go on through this season.
So where are those, Brent? How many different spots?
So we have most of our DNR customer service centers are locations where those drop-in Mondays are occurring. If folks head to our michigan.gov/deer page, and really that's got all the resources you need, whether it's finding information about those dates, finding regulations, finding your location to have a deer tested, or another thing you talked about in terms of donating a deer. You've got links there also to find where you can drop off a deer to be donated, which is another growing emphasis for the program.
Michigan.gov/deer for all things deer. Yeah, I love this donation option, and I know there are a couple of different, there's the old Hunters Feeding the Hungry and the Michigan Sportsmen Against Hunger, two good options, but man, it's if we can help feed people with extra venison, it's a win-win because, number one, it's a great PR move for us as hunters, and I think we need all the good PR we can get these days, and it actually helps people by providing protein, good taste and protein for them. I mean, there's no downside to that, is there, Brent?
Yeah, that's right. And so the Hunters Feeding Michigan program is one of the iteration now. We've really directly partnered with the food banks around Michigan to be able to provide that resource to folks. We've got a couple of upcoming drives. So Friday, November 21st, there's going to be a couple locations around the state from Escanaba to Howard City and so forth. There's a couple different times throughout the remainder of the seasons into January where those drives are ongoing. And then again, as usual, there are also participating processors where you can come in and contact folks ahead of time to make arrangements, but the drop-off there makes it easy as possible to put a healthy, nutritious meal on the table for folks that could use extra assistance these days.
All right, Brent Rudolph, appreciate your time. We'll get you back on to talk about things in the future, but in the meantime, have a good season. The website, michigan.gov/deer, michigan.gov/deer for all things whitetails in Michigan. And this is the opening weekend of the firearm season. Still a very, very special time here in our great state. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to switch gears, talk about walleye fishing in the fall with Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, and we'll wrap it all up with Dixie Dave.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, it is Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan, on what could be argued is the biggest weekend of the year in the outdoors here in our great state of Michigan. Why? Because it's the opening weekend of the firearm deer season, and this year the opener falls on a Saturday. So no excuses to not get out there. In fact, as you are hearing this show, I am more than likely in the blind or in a ladder stand trying to put some venison in the freezer. I'm out there with my son James, my grandson Trent, my granddaughter Addison, just having a good time. I I don't know. I'm really trying to put a big doe down. And so far, I just haven't had any luck, haven't had any opportunities. I'm hoping that with a gun in my hand now to increase my range that, now if I see a nice doe, I can take her. We'll see what happens. Either way, we're going to have fun. I think there's probably a few people in our state not thinking about deer hunting this weekend, and I think I can probably imagine one of them. His name is Lance Valentine. Sir Lancelot, I call him, of the Walleye Zone, the walleyezone.com. I have known Lance forever. I have so much respect for this guy. He is one of those people that looks at a body of water and he has this innate ability to just dissect it and try to think what the fish are thinking about. And while many of us are out there deer hunting this time of year, Lance is out there chasing big fall walleye, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Sir Lancelot, welcome back, buddy.
Mikey, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I have some questions. I want to know how your fishing education weekend was. I had every intention of trying to join you guys. I didn't make it. I couldn't make it. But this year, for the first time in many years, you moved it from Lake Erie up to Saginaw Bay. How did it go?
Yeah, it went great. It's our 21st year doing it, and it's our first year in the fall on Saginaw Bay. We've done some spring and summer events on Saginaw Bay in the past, but this is our first fall trip. Our fall trip was, traditionally on Lake Erie and Huron, Ohio. It was kind of our traditional trip that started way back in 2004, and it was just time for a change. It was just time to come up here and kind of show people how great this fishing is. It was time to come up here and show people the amazing fishery that fall offers on Saginaw Bay. And honestly, the biggest reason we moved is that Ohio fishery is just getting, I'll be honest, just too popular. When we first started going down there, it was literally our group and maybe on a nice Saturday, 10 locals. But now with, the big giant ramp they have in here in Ohio and the Walleye Fall Brawl and the Walleye Slam and, everybody is out there, and that just creates just a lot of traffic. And, it's just nice to get up here, and kind of the romance of here in Ohio kind of has disappeared because of the people, and bringing people to Linwood Beach Marina specifically and the Linwood area in Saginaw Bay was just really nice to kind of get back to our roots. A little bit smaller group than we've had than we have taken in the past. We cut that down on purpose. Being able to, physically, I hopped on every single boat that the guys brought on Thursday and Friday. We had time for electronics updates and going through their tackle and making sure their boats were set up properly, making sure their transducers were on right, getting all their electronics set up, everything with, all software updates. I was in everybody's boat. I had a chance to spend 10 to 15 minutes with every single angler answering questions, which you just don't get to do with a group of 75 or 80 like we take to Ohio. So it was really nice to come to Linwood, be able to relax a little bit and really kind of enjoy the purpose and the reason why we started this thing, over 20 years ago.
The first thing I thought of, though, when you said you were coming to Saginaw Bay, I thought, ooh, well, and I love my beloved Saginaw Bay. That's my home body of water. And I know there are big fish out there this time of year, but I thought, ooh, they're not going to run into the size fish that they're used to seeing on Erie.
Yeah, and that's true, right? And, part of the seminar on Thursday night was the difference between Lake Erie and Saginaw Bay and kind of how they are different. And, we don't have the numbers of fish, number one. We don't have the numbers of big fish, number two, here on Saginaw Bay. And right now our population is kind of skewed towards more middle-of-the-road fish. We don't have the population balance at the high end like we have had before in the past. But we've had some really good year classes that are now getting to be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. We have almost historically high populations of walleyes in Saginaw Bay right now. And those good hatches from, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years ago, those fish are now at that point where they're going to be, 29, 28, 30, 31 inches. And we're going to start to see every single year now in the next couple of years, we're going to start to see these trophy walleye kind of return, and we're going to kind of tilt the other way and have a good trophy fisher. So yeah, is it Lake Erie? No, it's not. The migration routes are different. So the migration routes from where they spend the summer to where they're coming in the fall are much more defined, which makes them a little easier to find, and that we did find that was the case for sure for us. But yeah, it's a different fishery. It's not the big giant fish that you can get in Lake Erie, but when you can get out on we had a day and a half fishing. We had half a day on Thursday, Friday we couldn't fish. Everybody got out all day Saturday. And, when you end up with a mess of fish that are 5, 6, 7 pounds over the course of
nothing wrong with that.
one day of fishing, that's pretty good fishing.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. See, we're so spoiled, and you've said this before, too. In Michigan, we are so spoiled by our trophy walleye fishing that we look at a 5-pound fish and go, yeah, that's a good fish. Whereas most states in the country, they'd go, that's a trophy fish right there. We don't see many of them.
Yeah. We don't have fishing here in our part of the world. I've always said we have varying degrees of catching. It's fairly simple. It's fairly easy if you understand some of the migrations and some of the things that fish are doing, and understand what the bait fish are doing. Kind of understand that process from summer to fall and how those fish change. It was really, really good. Everybody was excited. Everybody loved it. We've already got people that are excited about coming back next year. So. We're looking forward to spending at least the next 2 or 3 years at Saginaw Bay, and we'll kind of go from there, but we're definitely going to be back.
I was watching the wind from my place about 15 miles west of you, and I thought, oh, boy, Lance's guys are having fun out there today.
Yeah, our plan originally was just, evaluations and boat stuff on Thursday and Friday. We saw the weather. We're like, okay, Thursday is going to be a little break in the weather. So as soon as the guys checked in and got there, we're like, hey, we're going to push seminars back a couple hours, go fishing today on Thursday. Guys got out and did some good fishing on Thursday. Friday, of course, was, a small craft advisory. So we were in the classroom all day, which we had planned anyway. That worked out good. And then Sunday, although Sunday was a little cold and a little windy in the morning, the wind did die down and everybody got a full day of fishing in on Saturday. I think everybody kind of came in at 3:34, 4:30, so everybody got a full day of fishing on Saturday. And then Sunday, the weather was so bad that about half the group stayed. And now we went to breakfast at Linwood Corners Restaurant, and we came back to Linwood Beach Marina, went into our little seminar set up there and just kind of talked fishing for a couple hours. And about 14, 15 guys stayed, and we just had a informal chat about fishing and kind of some things, and got on some side scan topics and some other things. So really, really a good weekend. The whole focus, it's called a fishing education weekend. Our focus is to make sure everybody leaves there a better fisherman with better information. It's going to help them no matter where they fish and when they fish. And, we know that we do that. The fishing, although we love it because it does kind of reinforce what we teach, it's part of it, but it's not the main focus. But we do love it when the guys get a chance to go out, apply what they learn, and actually see it work in real life.
Linwood Beach Marina, what a great base of operations.
Yeah, they were so nice to us. They cleaned out part of this. They're in the middle of putting boats away for the winter, and they left part of their inside storage open for us to do our seminars. They gave us a really, really good price on launching, a really, really good price if the guys wanted to put their boats in at a slip. We have, they opened up a little area for us to clean our fish because the fish cleaning station is closed. They made a spot for us to park our boat so the guys could charge up at night. Just first class people, and you know that, right? They're just great people, great operation, and a perfect host for what we're doing because everything is right there. Some of the guys stayed in the cabins right next to the marina. We stayed in the downstairs apartment. It was just really, really nice. We were able to have a campfire every night. They got a nice big campfire ring right there by the pavilion. You've been there, and we had a campfire at night and had most of the crew over there at night after dinner to hanging out by the campfire. And, what a better way. There isn't really a better way to end a day of fishing and fishing education than a bunch of anglers sitting by a campfire and telling fishing lies. So,
I was going to say that.
It was kind of the perfect place to host us.
I wasn't even there, and I'm thinking, boy, there's a lot of lying going on right there. Hang tight, Lance. We're talking with Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com, thewalleyezone.com. By the way, the website for Linwood Beach Marina is linwoodbeachmarina.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more with Lance about what they found when they were able to get on the water. Where are the fish? How did they target them? How did they catch them? All those good things. And there's nobody better to talk about that than Sir Lancelot himself, Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show. Let's go to Traverse City, WTCM 580 AM. Let's jump over to Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And then go to Ludington, News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard and to maintain that outdoor getaway as well. The folks from Reader are, I'm going to say, starting to think about wrapping up their fall season. Maybe not. Maybe not. They were over at our house to do round one of the fall cleanup. They will come back here shortly and do the second round. They'll finish blowing all the leaves out. Now, by now, I think they've pretty much got all of their sprinkler systems blown out. As I was looking at the snow on the ground, I'm thinking, I hope everybody has their sprinkler systems blown out. But they will also come back here in a few weeks when everything is done and do our final fall pruning of our ornamental trees. At that point, the leaves are all gone. They can see the structure of the limbs and the sticks, and they can see what they're dealing with. And my request to those guys at those point is cut them back as tight as you can without killing the tree so we can, start next spring on a good note. Anyway, the folks from Reader know what they're doing. They've been doing it for 60 years, right? So they know what they're doing. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump over to the WalleyeZone.com, the WalleyeZone.com, the online presence now of Sir Lancelot Lance Valentine, who just wrapped up their fishing education weekend on Saginaw Bay last weekend. They were fishing out of the Linwood Beach Marina. Lance, I got to ask you, where did you end up finding your fish?
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. On Thursday, we got a little bit of fishing time. Wasn't a ton of fishing time, so it was really a neat process to kind of go through all of my old data. We're really big on saving data and keeping data and keeping good fishing records. So we kind of went back through that and kind of knowing what we knew and kind of where the water temperature was and kind of how these fish were coming. And some things that haven't happened yet. There's fish in the river. We had one good push of big fish earlier, about 3-4 weeks ago. We haven't really had a good push of big fish yet. There's been fish trickling in the river, which tells me, kind of told me that these fish were kind of out a little bit further. And then the big thing, Mike, kind of the whole key to this whole thing was the bait. The bait situation on Saginaw Bay has been really weird this year. We have a lot of little bait, and we still have it. I think we had 2, maybe 3 shiner hatches. I think we had 2, maybe 3 perch hatches. And we had little 1-inch perch minnows, or shiners actually, in the marina. That's very, very rare for this time of year. So that kind of told me a few things. So what we ended up doing was basically, as fish come down the west side of the bay, there's a very steep drop-off there that starts in Pinconning, kind of comes down what we call the Pinconning Bar. And then those fish kind of follow that into the area there by the crib and that kind of hard bottom area they like for the fall, and they kind of slide into the river mouth. So we weren't catching a lot of fish out a little bit deeper, and there wasn't a big push of big fish, which tells me the main migration route up the channel or through the channel wasn't happening. So what we did is we sent the guys out, just a little gut feeling, if you will. Sent the guys out of Linwood Beach Marina, said basically hit 10 feet, turn right, fish that 7 to 12 foot flat, work it all the way down to the state park and kind of work in that area. And lo and behold, that's where the fish were. Those little bit smaller bait, there's still some perch left over that are 2.5, 3 inches long. Some of that smaller bait, it kind of slid into that shallow flat where there's still a little bit of green weed growth. And that deeper water just wasn't where they were. They were on that kind of shallow flat there. And our guys, when it was all said and done, at the end of the night, we had everybody record all their fish. We put everybody's waypoint for every fish up on the screen and put it on the projector, and it was really, really cool to kind of see how these little pods of fish were. And if you stayed on them, you caught fish. If you got out of these little pods, you didn't. So it was really neat to kind of see all of that data come together, show them how the information is used to make good fishing decisions, get them on the water, and everything was kind of the way we had hoped it would be. And that's just kind of where we found all of our fish.
I would have thought, normally if I remember our conversations in the past, you would say, look at Avery, by this time of year, Your small bait fish are gone. All that's left are the bigger bait fish, and so we're running bigger baits. So as a result, then, were you using more of a summertime size bait than you normally would this time of year?
Yeah, so it was really funny. You know, you're right. Traditionally, this time of year, we should be on, you know, at the smallest, size 9 stuff, and we should be fishing 11s, 13s, 14s. Some of our best lures this year were in that 7 size. We were still catching fish on Flicker Shed and Flicker Minnow 7s and 9s.
That's a July bait.
I know, because the bait is so small. So that was part of our conversation before we sent the guys out on Saturday was, hey, we've got to pay attention to this bait thing. You know, we can probably go a little bit bigger because it is fall, and these fish are going to react to bigger baits just because they're kind of tuned in that way. But most of the bait that they were feeding on was smaller 2.5, maybe 3-inch bait. So dropping down in size was definitely something that seemed to work. Now, it was really funny. One of the things we talked about bite windows, because in the fall what happens is traditionally big fish don't bite, or actually fish, period, but big fish specifically don't bite all day. They go in these little bite windows, and we've been talking about that all year on the Walleye Zone. You know, it happens in the summer. You see these fish come up, they bite, they go back down, they don't bite, and it's really obvious in the fall. And it was really neat as the guys were sending their fish in through the Walleye Zone. They were just taking a picture of their fish and their location, sending it so everybody could see it. There was nothing going on, and I told the guys we were going to probably see a bite window about 9:10, 9:15, somewhere in that range. There's lots of reasons for that. But about 9:40, we had like 1 or 2 fish called in, and all of a sudden at 9:40, from 9:40 to 10:30, my phone never stopped dinging. Ding, 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 ding. And then we had this little gap of another 2 hours where we'd catch, you'd see one fish come in randomly, kind of sporadic, and all of a sudden at about 1:15, we had this other bite window that lasted about 45 minutes, and the guys cleaned up. So it was important for him to learn how these bite windows change. And when you see fish, you don't leave fish, because at some point they're going to become active, and you want to be in the right place when these fish do become active. So having them see all of this happen, the fish go down, the fish come up. We talked about, the wind had been blowing one way for the last couple of days. It was blowing back the other. We talked about underwater current and seeing that on your boards and understanding that. All that kind of happened. So it was really, really neat to kind of put some of that stuff together, have the guys see what we've been talking about for years teaching, to have them see it on the water and have them be able to put it all together and catch some fish with it.
All right. I am not going to allow you to gloss over this subject and not come back to it. Predicting a bite window, how in the world were you able to predict when those fish were going to turn on?
Well, here's what you have to understand, right? We had a full moon. Actually, Saturday was full +3. So what happens in a full moon situation is these fish feed all night. And what happens is by the time it gets to, everybody has to get up and get out on the water early, which I never understood anyway. But anyway, everybody's got to get up and get out there early. So what happens is when you have a full moon, that morning bite doesn't exist, because these fish are full. They're done eating at 4:30, 5 o'clock. 7 o'clock, they're on the bottom. They're done. They're just digesting, right? They got a full belly. It's like right after Thanksgiving dinner. And now their trigger in their head says, hey, it's fall, it's cold. We have to eat as much as we can, as fast as we can. But they're like, I just can't anymore. So what happens is they kind of slide down. The sun comes up, 9:15, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Water gets a little bit warmer. A little bit of plankton rises. The bait fish come off the bottom to feed on the plankton. And it's a whole lot easier for a walleye to catch a minnow that's swimming than one that's laying down in the cover or on the bottom or not moving. So as that funk of a midnight bite wears off on the walleye, the sun is up, the bait fish kind of rise. It just creates a situation where everything's easier and the walleyes take advantage of it.
I don't know, Lance. When you say these things, I'm thinking, is he? I'm amazed by you. I'm speechless right now thinking about everything you just said.
Does it make sense?
It does make sense, but it doesn't make sense in my mind till I hear you say it.
Well, I guess that's why I'm still in business, right?
So, hey, what was the water temp out there, by the way?
So the water temp was running anywhere from 49 to 52. It was kind of perfect for fall fishing. We just haven't had a big rush of fish up the river yet, and I don't know what the reason for that is, but we just haven't yet. There's been fish trickling in, but somewhere there's a big giant school of big fish somewhere. Now, the weather on Saturday didn't let us really run around and kind of go look for those fish. It would have been nice to kind of check some other spots along some of those major migration routes. But because of the weather, it was really, really tough to slide over there and kind of take a look. So I'm sure there's a big pot of big fish somewhere along the migration routes. It was just kind of hard for us to get out there and kind of find them because of the weather. And when you got a short day, everybody wants to catch fish, and we were on fish, so we just kind of stayed there.
Sure.
Our biggest fish was a little over 8 pounds. We had a couple that were touch over 7, and we had a whole bunch in that 21 to 24 inch range. So good fishing. Had a great time doing it, and it was really neat for the guys again to see all of the stuff that we teach over the years. They actually got to see it. Guys came in and said, "Man, I saw my boards. There was a east to west wind, and man, I saw my boards on the east side of the boat, closer to the boat, and the boards on the west side, further away from the boat. And I know if I was trolling west to east, my boards were further behind the boat because we were going into the current. If I was trolling east to west, my offshore boards were getting closer to the boat because they were being pushed forward by the current. So it was really neat for all the stuff that we teach, all those details. It was really, really neat for them to be able to see how that all works, actually see it on the water, and actually be able to adjust to it and catch fish.
John, how are we doing on time? Am I a minute off? Okay, we're good? We're like 30 seconds? No, a minute and 30. Okay. Well, I'm a minute off on my time here. Lance, listen, so you know what I'm going to ask you, right? I'm going to what am I going to ask you? Because you can give me the verbiage right now.
Lance, is there any chance I can get you to stick around for the coveted third segment?
Oh, that's a little bit scary that you were able to read my mind so thoroughly and completely and accurately. Okay, Lance, is there any question or any chance I can get you to stick around for the coveted third segment?
You know what? I probably could get away from this accounting work I'm doing today and probably talk about fishing a little longer, sure.
So I'm actually helping you out then by having you on the show this week?
You're saving me from misery, yes.
All right, Lance, I appreciate that. We'll take a break. We will come back with the coveted third. I was telling John, I said, I bet you I'm going to offer Lance the coveted third. And John's like, you're going to offer Lance the coveted third. The coveted third segment that very few people get, only the more interesting guests. Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com, thewalleyezone.com. We will take a break when we come back. The coveted third with Lance Valentine right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And back on the other side of the state in Saginaw, WSGW 790 AM 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm here every week. This is where we record the show. In fact, you know by now, for this 3 hours, I call this little corner of the building the Outdoor Magazine studio. When it's not the Outdoor Magazine studio, it is the Jonathan Dent studio. John's been pretty good, though, about I think, look, I can see it in his eyes. Deep down inside, he resents the fact that for 3 hours I call it something other than Jonathan's studio. But he doesn't verbalize it. He doesn't vocalize it. He's a really good young guy. I think, he's John, I appreciate you not, look at his face is turning red. I hit a nerve. So, John, I appreciate your help, as do I appreciate the help of Charlie Rude helping me out every week with the show. Also appreciate the fact that a guy like Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine, can take time away from doing his accounting to join me on the radio show and talk about fishing. Lance, I know it's a sacrifice, buddy.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to make the sacrifice, but I'll get back at it sometime this week.
All right, so we're talking earlier about the water temps on Saginaw Bay. Now, we all know, Lance, as the water temp drops, the slowest trolling speeds drop as well, right? Except in your world.
Well, it's always funny to have this conversation with people about trolling speed. Now, look, traditionally, yes, walleyes and bait they're cold-blooded critters, and they do kind of react negatively to cold water because that's kind of how they function. But in the fall, there's a trigger in a walleye's brain that says you have to eat as much as you can, as fast as you can, as often as you can. And that overrides the I'm kind of slow and dumpy trigger that the metabolism hits. So here's what people have to understand. This is the easiest way I can explain trolling speed. And this is why we had people on our trip this weekend catch fish anywhere from 1.6 to 2.3 in a straight line, and a couple of the better fish that we had caught were actually at 2.1, 2.2 straight line on the outside of an outside turn. So that bait was probably going 2.6, 2.7, maybe even 2.8. That bait was humping. So here's my explanation to people who think you have to go slow. You are a little 5-inch perch or a 6-inch shad, and you're just swimming along, living your happy life. You're kind of chilly. You're kind of like, ooh, this is not fun. This is cold. And all of a sudden, a 9-pound walleye comes behind you and opens up his mouth. Are you going to bet that walleye is going to swim slow because he's kind of cold too? Or are you going to go, holy crap, it's time to get out of here and run away? I think walleyes, especially in the fall, are expecting the bait to swim away as fast as it can. When you have a bait that's just kind of slowly moving through the system and just kind of looks there, and we're starting to prove this every year now with forward-facing sonar, but definitely with cameras, fish will follow baits for quarter mile, half a mile, because that bait, that lure, because you think you have to go slow, that lure is not acting like a piece of live bait or real bait really would if that walleye was behind there. So that walleye gets behind there and he kind of squints his eyes and he lifts his dorsal fin up. He's, I'm going to get you. And the bait just goes, and just kind of keeps on doing his little wiggly thing. He's expecting that bait to disappear. He's expecting that bait to swim fast. He's expecting that bait to change direction. So don't be afraid to try speed to trigger fish. Don't be afraid to turn, and don't be afraid to make your lures look like a piece of real or live bait is actually going to react when it has a walleye coming up its rear end.
When the fish come up the river and we get a good population of fish in the Saginaw River, will you fish the river? Will you go up there and jig the river, or are you strictly a big water guy?
Yeah, no, I'll try to get up there a couple times. You know, the problem is this time of year for me is we are content heavy this time of year. Lots of studio time, lots of writing. I'm actually finishing up my account. I got 3 seminars I have to put together here in the next couple of days to get in the studio and record. We are really heavy content driven this time of year. So November, December, January, February, with show season, this is kind of our content creation time. Because, you know, once March gets here, we're, you know, late March, we're on the river, and then we kind of go. So I'll probably get up there a couple times with a couple buddies and do a little bit of jig fishing, maybe a little bit of casting. I do enjoy that part, and I do love fishing the Saginaw River. It's kind of how I kind of became a walleye fisherman. But unfortunately right now my life is a little bit different, and content creation kind of takes over, you know, our winter time, you know, being in the studio and getting stuff out for the Walleye Zone.
No deer hunting at all for you, Lance?
Oh, no. Are you silly? Deer hunting is 4 things I can't do. Get up early, sit still, be cold, and be quiet. I don't do any of those 4 things very well. So deer hunting is not, I will run through the woods and chase bunnies. I will be more than happy to go bird hunting. There is no way this guy's going to get up early, sit where it's cold, and not be able to move around and have to not talk. So no, I'm not a deer hunter at all. All
right. Well, I won't even ask you then, because the answer is obviously no.
My personality is not geared towards any activity where I have to be still for more than 5 minutes. So that's just not how I'm built.
Lance, I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you are always willing to give me time. I'm glad the fishing education weekend, the inaugural one on Saginaw Bay at Linwood Beach Marina, I'm glad it went well. And I will do my best to be there next year because I'd really like to be a part of that. Lance Valentine of the Walleye Zone, thewalleyezone.com. One of the more interesting guys you will ever have a chance to talk with. If you get a chance to go on the water with Lance, as I did last summer, take advantage of it. It is an on-the-water seminar, and you learn so much. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we're going to wrap it all up with another very interesting guy that I have learned much from over the years. His name is Dave Minar, wild game chef extraordinaire, and he will help us wrap up this week's show right here on Outdoor Magazine. So it's the opening weekend of the firearm deer season here in the great state of Michigan. It's no secret we recorded the show a few days ago. And as you are hearing it right now, I am more than likely in the Michigan whitetail woods trying to knock down some venison. Either a big doe, more than likely. That's if I'm going to shoot a deer this weekend, it's probably going to be a big doe. If I'm lucky, maybe a 2.5-year-old buck, a decent-sized 2.5-year-old buck. But regardless, we are out there enjoying the experience, just being part of our Michigan history and tradition of what is deer hunting. I'd like to get some venison on the ground, like to get some venison in the freezer. And if I do, I know where to turn for a good recipe. His name is Dixie Dave Minar, wild game chef extraordinaire, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. David, welcome.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty darn good. Enjoying this little bit of a cooler temperature. Not much for the snow, but
What do you got? What do you got for us this week, buddy?
Got a venison steak Diane, which is on page 105, and so this is going to be for 4 portions. You need about 8 ounces of trimmed venison steak per person. Either the leg steak, which would be relatively tender, or the back strap, which would be even better. A medium onion diced fine, a 12-ounce package of mushrooms sliced thin. With shallots, 2 of them would be an option. If you can't find them, that's fine too. Diced real fine. 2 ounces more or less of Worcestershire sauce. You can adjust it to your flavor. Worcestershire has a really unique flavor of its own. So, and then you need 2 pats of butter, a jar of beef gravy, a couple ounces either of bourbon or brandy, 2 cloves of garlic diced fine, a little olive oil, and flour to dredge. So, what you're going to do is you're going to pound the steaks with a meat mallet between 2 sheets of plastic wrap to make it thinner and more tender. And then you're going to dredge the meat in flour in a very hot pan with a small amount of oil. Brown meat on both sides. You don't want to cook it. You just want to caramelize the meat. And so you're going to remove it while quite rare. In the same pan, you can add the onions, the garlic, the shallots, the mushrooms, and saute over a lower heat for 1 to 2 minutes just to kind of break the flavor loose of that and get the onions started to cook and the shallots. Return it to high heat, and away from your stove, you want to either flambe with the brandy or the bourbon, whichever you prefer. Both of them are infuse a heck of a lot of good flavor. I'm telling you what, the dish wouldn't be the same without that. When the flames subside, put it back on the stove. Add the Worcestershire sauce and the gravy. Bring it back with a nice hot fire. Bring it up to a boil, and reduce the liquid. Maybe close to by half, so it's nice and thick. Return the steaks to the pan and cook till the desired doneness is done, and remove the steaks to warm plates that you're going to serve with, and then add the butter. Mix well. It's going to velvetize that sauce. It's going to make it real nice and shiny, and then spoon the sauce over the steaks and enjoy. This is a great way to do it. We made venison elk steaks Diane at the dish a couple of weeks ago.
And I bet that was a big hit.
They did. We sold out of elk steaks.
I know, Dave, from talking with you so many times that you say, look, serve this as rare as you can. And then I've seen you do something that, to me, only a seasoned chef can figure out. You touch the steak to figure out how well done it is. What is that all about? Okay,
what you do is a steak, when it's nice and rare, is real soft feeling to your touch. And then the more well done it becomes, the more firm. And so you can really, it's just with a little bit of practice, you can really hit it down pretty darn good. So the softer, more spongy steak is rare, and then the firm, more well done, which would be a little tougher, and dried out would be that way that it's hard to explain.
I know. I've actually seen you compare it to touching your hand. You know, the consistency of your hand.
The bottom of your thumb. The bottom of your thumb is nice and soft, and then the more well done the steak becomes, then it gets a little tougher feeling.
Sure. Well, David, listen, thank you for the recipe. Good luck this weekend. I hope you and Terry have fun and have success, and you and I will talk again next weekend.
All righty. Well, everybody out there, be safe and sane and shoot some big ones.
Shoot some big ones. Words of advice from wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. But you know what? You, my friends who are listening, you are the biggest part of this whole process here. It wouldn't matter what John and I do in the studio, what Charlie and I do in the studio, wouldn't matter what recipe Dixie Dave comes up with. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show, and then it would be all for naught, and I would be heartbroken. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine Radio. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I want to see your pictures. Send me your deer pictures. Put the animal's tongue back in its mouth. It's not too much to ask. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.